The day I married Michael was the happiest day of my life. The way he looked at me as I walked down the aisle, his eyes glistening with tears of joy, made me feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. We had met 3 years prior at a mutual friend's birthday party, and it was love at first sight, at least for me. Michael took a bit more convincing, but once we started dating, there was no looking back. Our wedding was small but perfect, surrounded by family and friends who had supported our relationship from the beginning. Michael's family, especially his mother Gloria and sister Rebecca, welcomed me with open arms. Or so I thought. "You'll make beautiful babies," Gloria had whispered in my ear during our wedding reception, patting my hand affectionately. I smiled and nodded, secretly thrilled at the thought of starting a family with Michael. We both wanted children. At least 2, we'd agreed, and planned to start trying right away. Little did I know that those innocent words would later feel like a knife twisting in my heart. The first year of our marriage was blissful. We bought a small house in the suburbs, close enough to the city for our commutes, but far enough to have a yard where our future children could play. Each month, I'd eagerly await signs that I might be pregnant, only to face disappointment time and again. "It'll happen when it's meant to happen," Michael would reassure me, holding me close on the nights I cried myself to sleep. By the second year, the questions from family members began. "Any good news yet?" they'd ask at gatherings, their eyes flicking to my stomach. Gloria, in particular, seemed increasingly concerned, often pulling me aside to suggest folk remedies or timing techniques. My friend's daughter had trouble too, but then she started eating pineapple cores and got pregnant right away, she'd say, meaning well, but only adding to my mounting anxiety. The third year, we decided to see a fertility specialist. Dr. Amara was kind but straightforward. After numerous tests and procedures, the verdict was clear. Michael's sperm count was extremely low, making natural conception nearly impossible. I held his hand tightly as we received the news, watching his face fall. For weeks afterward, he was quieter than usual, spending long hours in his home office or going for solitary drives. One night, I found him sitting in the dark on our porch swing. "I feel like I've failed you," he whispered, his voice breaking. "All you wanted was to be a mother." I sat beside him, resting my head on his shoulder. "You haven't failed me, Michael. We'll find another way." But what was that other way? The question hung between us like a shadow. Dr. Amara had mentioned several options: adoption, surrogacy, or IVF with a sperm donor. After months of discussion and soul-searching, we settled on the latter. "The baby will still be part of you," Michael said, touching my stomach gently. "And I will love any child that comes from you, Sarah. I promise." The process was more emotionally draining than I had anticipated. Choosing a donor felt surreal, browsing through profiles like shopping for genetic material. We eventually selected someone with similar features to Michael, tall with dark hair and green eyes, a background in engineering like my husband, and an impressive medical history. The clinic assured us of complete anonymity for both parties. The first round of IVF failed. So did the second. By the third attempt, I had started to lose hope, preparing myself for the possibility that motherhood might not be in my future after all. When Dr. Amara called with the results, I answered the phone with trembling hands, expecting another gentle letdown. "Congratulations, Sarah," she said instead. "You're pregnant." I couldn't believe it. After nearly 5 years of hoping and trying, a baby was growing inside me. Michael wept when I told him, kneeling before me and pressing his ear to my still flat stomach. "Hello in there," he whispered. "We've been waiting so long to meet you. We decided not to tell anyone about the sperm donor. It was our private business, we reasoned, and ultimately irrelevant to how much we would love our child." "This baby is ours," Michael insisted. "How it came to be doesn't change that." The pregnancy progressed normally. I glowed with happiness as my belly grew, and Michael documented every moment, taking weekly photos and talking to the baby every night. When we found out we were having a boy, Michael started planning fishing trips and baseball games. His sister Rebecca gave us a beautiful handmade blanket, and Gloria helped set up the nursery, passing down the crib that had held both Michael and Rebecca as infants. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. Our son Jacob was born after 14 hours of labor. A healthy 8-pound boy with a strong cry and a full head of blonde hair. Blonde hair that matched neither Michael's dark brown nor my auburn. As the nurse placed him in my arms, I searched his tiny face for traces of us, but found unfamiliar features instead. His eyes, when they briefly opened, were a startling blue. "He's beautiful," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion as he stroked Jacob's cheek with one finger. If he noticed the lack of resemblance, he didn't mention it. But others did. When Gloria and Rebecca visited the hospital the next day, I caught the look they exchanged as they peered into the bassinet. "He doesn't look much like either of you, does he?" Gloria remarked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. "Babies change a lot in the first few months," I replied quickly, my heart racing. The nurse said his eye color might darken, and the hair could too. Rebecca picked him up, studying his features. "I suppose so. Still, he's absolutely gorgeous. A perfect little stranger." The word stranger hung in the air, loaded with implication. As weeks passed and we settled into life with Jacob, the comments continued, especially from Michael's side of the family. At Jacob's baptism, I overheard Michael's cousin Maria whispering to another relative, "The milkman must have made a special delivery, if you know what I mean." They laughed, not realizing I was right behind them. Michael defended me fiercely when I told him, calling Maria to demand an apology, which she reluctantly gave. "People just don't understand genetics," he fumed afterward. "Jacob is our son, period." But as Jacob grew, it became increasingly clear that he resembled neither of us. By his first birthday, his hair remained platinum blonde, his eyes a crystalline blue. He was beautiful, but visibly not our biological child, or at least not Michael's. The whispers turned into more direct questions. "Does blonde hair run in your family, Sarah?" Gloria asked during Jacob's birthday party, eyeing my auburn locks. "My grandmother was blonde." I lied, the words burning my throat. Later that night, after everyone had left and Jacob was asleep, Michael found me crying in our bedroom. "They'll never stop, will they?" I sobbed. "Should we tell them the truth?" Michael took my hands in his. "This is our business, Sarah. Our family, our choice. Let them gossip if they want to. It doesn't change who we are or how much we love Jacob." His conviction reassured me, but the seed of doubt had been planted. What if the rumors affected Jacob someday? What if they damaged Michael's relationships with his family? The weight of our secret felt suddenly heavier than before. 3 months after Jacob's first birthday, Rebecca came to stay with us for what she called a little sister vacation. She had recently divorced her husband of 5 years and seemed adrift, spending most days in our guest room or wandering aimlessly around the house while Michael and I worked. I tried to be understanding. Divorce is devastating, but something about her presence made me uneasy. One evening, after putting Jacob to bed, I came downstairs to find Rebecca and Michael in deep conversation at the kitchen table. They fell silent as I entered. "Everything okay?" I asked, looking between them. "Rebecca wants to start her own interior design business," Michael explained. "She's asking for a loan to help get it off the ground." I nodded slowly. We weren't wealthy, but we lived comfortably on our combined incomes. Still, a startup loan would be significant. "How much are you thinking?" I asked Rebecca. 20,000, she replied, not meeting my eyes. "But Michael says you can only spare 10 right now." Something in her tone made my skin crawl, a hint of entitlement, perhaps, or resentment. But I brushed it aside. That seems reasonable, I agreed. We're still paying off the fertility treatments. Rebecca's eyes flickered at that, a moment of calculation crossing her face. Of course. I understand completely. The next morning, Michael transferred the money to Rebecca's account before leaving for work. I stayed home with Jacob as I did 3 days a week, working remotely while caring for him. Rebecca was unusually attentive to Jacob that day, offering to feed him lunch and put him down for his nap. "You're so good with him," I commented, genuinely touched by her help. "He's family," she replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Blood or not. The comment stung, but I let it go. Later that afternoon, I realized I hadn't seen Rebecca for a couple of hours. Jacob was still napping, and the house was quiet. I found her in the bathroom, hurriedly putting something into her purse. "Sorry," she said, startled. "Just needed some aspirin." I nodded, but as she brushed past me, I noticed the medicine cabinet was closed and untouched. What had she been doing in there? 2 days later, Rebecca announced she needed to return home to start working on her business plan. She thanked us for the loan and the hospitality, hugging Jacob tightly before she left. "I'll see you soon, little one," she whispered, kissing his blonde curls. The sense of foreboding I'd felt during her stay intensified after she left. Michael noticed my distraction. "What's wrong?" he asked as we prepared dinner that night. "I don't know," I admitted. Something felt off about Rebecca's visit. "Did you notice anything strange?" He shrugged. "She's going through a tough time with the divorce. Probably just emotional." I wanted to believe him, but a nagging doubt remained. What had Rebecca been doing in our bathroom that day? And why did her parting words to Jacob sound so possessive? The answer came 3 weeks later, in the form of a devastating family ambush. It was a Sunday afternoon when the doorbell rang. Michael answered it while I was changing Jacob upstairs. By the time I came down, our living room was filled with Michael's family: Gloria, Rebecca, his Uncle Thomas, and 2 cousins including Maria. "What's going on?" I asked, clutching Jacob to my chest. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Gloria stepped forward, her usually warm face hard with accusation. "Rebecca has something to share with everyone," she said coldly. Rebecca pulled an envelope from her purse. "I had a DNA test done," she announced, her voice trembling with what I later realized was feigned righteousness. Between Michael and Jacob, my blood turned to ice. The bathroom. The purse. She must have taken their toothbrushes. "You did what?" Michael's voice was dangerously quiet. Rebecca handed him the envelope. "See for yourself. There's no match. Jacob isn't your son." All eyes turned to me, filled with judgment and disgust. Gloria was openly crying. "How could you do this to my son?" she demanded. "Passing off another man's child as his? We welcomed you into our family." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Jacob sensed my distress and began to wail, his little face reddening. "Who is the real father, Sarah?" Rebecca pressed, stepping closer. "Someone we know? Was it an affair? The truth comes out eventually. You might as well tell us now." Through my panic, I looked at Michael, silently pleading. This wasn't how we wanted to reveal our choice. Not like this, not as an accusation of infidelity. Michael looked down at the paper in his hands, then slowly raised his eyes to meet his family's expectant faces. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. "I want all of you to leave our house. Now." Gloria gasped. "Michael, didn't you hear what I said? This child isn't." "I know exactly who my son is," Michael interrupted, "and I'm telling you to leave." "But the test," Rebecca started. "The test shows exactly what we already knew," Michael said, moving to stand beside me and Jacob. what we decided not to share because it was private. Sarah and I used a sperm donor for IVF because I can't father children naturally. Jacob is our son in every way that matters. The silence that followed was deafening. Uncle Thomas was the first to speak. Why didn't you tell us? He asked quietly. Because it wasn't your business, Michael replied. And clearly, we were right to keep it private, given how you've all been treating Sarah and gossiping behind our backs. Gloria stepped forward, hand outstretched. Michael, honey, we didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't need to know, he cut her off. Instead of supporting us, you've been whispering and insinuating that my wife was unfaithful. You sneaked into our home. He turned to Rebecca, took our personal items without permission, and conducted a DNA test without consent. That's not just immoral, it's illegal. Rebecca paled. I was trying to protect you. No, Michael said firmly. You were trying to hurt us. To hurt Sarah. And I won't forget that. He walked to the front door and held it open. Like I said, I want all of you to leave. Now. One by one, they filed out, stunned into silence by Michael's anger. Gloria tried once more to speak, but Michael turned away. Once they were gone, he closed the door and locked it, then returned to where Jacob and I stood in the living room. Without a word, he wrapped his arms around both of us, holding us tight as I finally broke down in tears. I'm so sorry, I sobbed. I should have insisted we tell them from the beginning. This isn't your fault, Michael said firmly, wiping my tears with his thumb. None of this is your fault. That night, after Jacob was asleep, we sat on the porch swing just as we had years before when discussing our fertility options. What happens now? I asked softly. Now we continue being a family, Michael replied. With or without them. True to his word, Michael cut off contact with his family in the weeks that followed. He blocked their numbers, returned their letters unopened, and ignored their attempts to visit. Gloria camped outside our house one day until Michael called the police to escort her away. It broke my heart to see the pain in his eyes, but his resolve never wavered. They crossed a line, he said whenever I suggested reconciliation. They need to understand there are consequences. 3 months passed. Jacob took his first steps, said his first word, duh, which made Michael cry, and grew more beautiful every day. Sometimes I caught Michael watching him with such tender love that it made my chest ache. Biology meant nothing in the face of such devotion. Then came the olive branch, a handwritten letter from Gloria, delivered by certified mail so we couldn't return it unopened. Michael read it alone in his office, emerging hours later with red-rimmed eyes. She's apologizing, he said, handing me the letter. They all are. They want to meet with us, to make amends. I read the letter carefully. The apology seemed genuine, filled with remorse and shame. Gloria wrote of sleepless nights and deep regret, of missing her son and grandson, of wanting to make things right. She acknowledged the harm they'd caused and promised to respect our boundaries moving forward. What do you want to do? I asked, returning the letter. Michael sighed deeply. I don't know. Part of me is still so angry, but another part misses them. I finished for him. He nodded. Jacob deserves to know his grandmother, his aunt, but only if they can truly accept our family as it is. We decided to meet on neutral ground, a private room at a local restaurant. Just Michael, Jacob, and me with Gloria and Rebecca. The tension was palpable as we entered, Jacob perched on Michael's hip, observing the strangers with curious blue eyes. Gloria looked older than she had 3 months ago, her face lined with new wrinkles. Rebecca couldn't meet our eyes as we sat down. Thank you for coming, Gloria began, her voice thick with emotion. I know we don't deserve your forgiveness. No, you don't, Michael agreed, his tone even. but I'm willing to listen. What followed was an hour of tears and confessions. How the family had suspected infidelity from the moment they saw Jacob's blonde hair. How Rebecca had convinced herself she was protecting her brother by exposing the truth. How they had planned the confrontation, expecting drama and admission of guilt, only to have their assumptions shattered. "I should have trusted you," Gloria said, looking directly at me. "Both of you." Instead, I let gossip and appearances cloud my judgment. Rebecca spoke next, her voice barely above a whisper. "I returned the money," she said. "The loan. It's back in your account, with interest. I never intended to start a business. It was just an excuse to stay at your house and investigate." She swallowed hard. "I violated your privacy and your trust. I'm truly sorry." Michael listened silently, his face impassive. When they finished speaking, he looked at me, silently asking what I thought. I took a deep breath. "Family means more than DNA," I said carefully. "We've always believed that, which is why we chose to have Jacob the way we did. The question is whether you can believe it too." Gloria reached across the table, not quite touching us, but extending her hand. "I want to. I want to be a grandmother to Jacob. I want to make this right." Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lifted Jacob onto the table, facing his grandmother. "Jacob," he said softly, "this is your Grandma Gloria, and your Aunt Rebecca." Gloria's eyes filled with tears as Jacob regarded her with solemn curiosity. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a dazzling, toothy grin that transformed his little face, and reached for her. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was a start. 6 months have passed since that meeting. Healing has been slow, the rebuilding of trust even slower. We established clear boundaries, no unsupervised visits at first, no comments about Jacob's appearance, mandatory family therapy sessions. Gloria and Rebecca agreed to everything without complaint, desperate to be part of our lives again. Jacob is 2 now, a whirlwind of energy and joy. He still looks nothing like us, his blonde hair and blue eyes drawing comments from strangers who don't know our story. But within our family, our whole family, no one mentions it anymore. Last week, during a backyard barbecue, I watched as Gloria helped Jacob up the slide, her hands steady on his back, her face alight with genuine love. Nearby, Rebecca sat with Michael, showing him photos of her actual new apartment. She'd moved to be closer to us. The scene was ordinary, peaceful, like any family gathering. Later, as Michael and I cleaned up after everyone had gone, he pulled me into his arms. "Are you happy?" he asked, searching my face. "Yes," I answered truthfully. "Are you?" He smiled, the same smile that had captivated me all those years ago. "I have everything I ever wanted," he said simply. That night, as I checked on Jacob before bed, I found Michael already there, sitting beside our sleeping son's crib. "What are you thinking about?" I whispered. "How different our lives might have been," he replied softly. "If Rebecca hadn't taken that DNA test. If we'd kept our secret. I considered this. We would have lived with the whispers and suspicions. Jacob might have grown up feeling the tension without understanding why." Michael nodded. "Sometimes the hardest truths bring the greatest clarity." He was right, of course. Our family had been fractured, then rebuilt on a foundation of painful honesty. The cracks were still visible if you knew where to look, but the structure itself was stronger than before. As I stand here now, looking at the photograph on our mantle, Michael, Jacob, and me, surrounded by family who chose love over biology, I wonder about the different shapes family can take, about the secrets we keep and the truths we tell, about forgiveness and its limits. What would you have done in Michael's place? Cut ties forever with those who betrayed your trust? Or find the strength to offer second chances? And what about me? Should I have insisted on honesty from the beginning, despite Michael's privacy concerns? The journey to parenthood takes many paths. Ours was winding and difficult, marked by pain and betrayal. But it led us here, to a little boy who calls Michael Dada with complete conviction, to family gatherings where no one questions our choices anymore. Sometimes I catch Gloria watching Michael with Jacob, the way he teaches him to throw a ball, reads him stories with funny voices, kisses away his tears when he falls. In those moments, I see understanding in her eyes. The recognition that parenthood transcends DNA. That my husband is, in every way that matters, Jacob's father. Family isn't just born. Sometimes it's chosen, created, fought for, defended against those who would define it too narrowly. Our story continues to unfold, day by day, choice by choice. And I wonder, as you reflect on your own family bonds, what would you be willing to do for those you love? Where would you draw the line between forgiveness and self-protection? And how do you define family in your own life? The answers may reveal more about ourselves than we're prepared to face.